Welcome to today's episode of Policing Pontifications, brought to you by Neff Strategies Consulting Group. Today's lesson was generated by a question from my son. And when you've been a military and federal prosecutor for 30 years and you raised two kids who grew up in your house, these are the kinds of questions that you end up getting from your children. This is from an actual text thread message within our family group chat today. My son, who by the way bought me this hat, said, "Could a vampire policeman enter my house without my consent, but with a warrant?" And I answered and I said, "Do you really want to know the answer to that question? Because there actually is an answer to that question." And he said, "Yeah, I kind of want to know." And my daughter said, "Now I'm really curious. What is the answer?" So here's the answer. A vampire policeman can enter your home without your consent if he has a search warrant supported by probable cause issued by a neutral and detached magistrate. However, he may only search for items contained in the warrant that constitute potential contraband or evidence of crimes, which means that in order for him to draw blood from you, he would need to specify why he needed to, and that would be needed to be included within the warrant, that your blood is potential evidence of a crime. Now that significantly narrows the possibilities for the vampire cop. Only a couple I can think of right off the top of my head. Perhaps the police were following you and it looked like you were drunk driving, and so they needed to get a warrant to draw blood to check what your blood alcohol content was, or perhaps you committed a crime as a result of ingesting drugs, and evidence of that ingestion of drugs could be important to the investigation of a crime because the offense may have been induced by the effects of the drug. But that kind of puts the vampire cop in a conundrum. If he draws your blood in such a scenario, he might end up being drunk on duty, which could lead to a suspension, and that may affect his credibility on the witness stand. On the other hand, though, his drunken state could actually be proof that you were drunk, and you wouldn't even need additional testing after that. So the cop would have to ask himself, is a potential suspension worth it to get the blood evidence out of this suspect? So my son said, "I feel like his method of drawing blood has to be some sort of a human rights violation at least, no?" And I said, "Well, not with the warrant. We're talking about due process here, not human rights. Of course, if he draws too much, he could be considered as having gone outside the boundaries of what was necessary from the warrant, and that could create legal problems and potentially an opportunity for the suspect to recover in a lawsuit or something along those lines." So my son said, "Interesting." And I said, "I'm totally using this scenario as training materials now for the law enforcement division of Neff Strategies Consulting Group. And you've been the beneficiary of a rather odd text exchange that we had in our family today." So there is a lot more nuance to this than what I just explained, but we can go ahead and talk about it now.